Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about Grimes, the indie darling turned megastar. We're going to be covering all of their main albums that are on Spotify and covering some of the controversy that surrounds Grimes. But first, let's get some backstory. Grimes, whose former name is Claire Boucher, but currently goes under the name C, which has a scientific meaning, the speed of light, because apparently the speed of light is universally represented by the symbol C, though Grimes' preferred way of spelling is lowercase and italicized. The reason for the switch will be talked about more in depth later, but simply Grimes didn't like their old name and decided to change it to distance themselves from further scrutiny, though celebrities changing their name is nothing new, like the artist formerly named Prince was Prince and Ye was Kanye, but we're already getting off track. Also, I'm going to be using they them pronouns for Grimes because I'm trans and I respect trans people. Grimes is a Canadian-born musician growing up in Vancouver, British Columbia. Grimes was raised Catholic and attended Catholic school, which deeply informed their beliefs as a kid and also seeped into their music, as images of God and Catholicism pop up in their art frequently. Grimes stated that growing up, they were terrified of a omnipotent God. The world was this huge, extreme, psychedelic, constant battle going on between heaven and hell, they state. But life wasn't too bad, as growing up in middle-class Canada, isn't exactly the worst childhood reading science fiction and whatnot. Though, everything would change once Grimes got into middle school and began acting out and getting bullied a lot. They were introduced to the internet quite early and fell in love with its freedom. They could listen to whatever music they wanted, which would influence Grimes' musical style going forward. Unfortunately, things at home and at school were getting worse and worse, if you could believe that. Grimes told their devout Christian family that they were agnostic, which is pretty much as good as being atheist, if you're talking to Catholics at least. Around this time, Grimes' parents divorced, though Grimes recalls not feeling much when they separated. But bullying at school would become their main problem, with everyone from nerds to jocks picking on Grimes since they were so different from other classmates. Eventually, Grimes did make friends with the local queer and art kids, but they were socially outcasted from the rest of the school as well, but at least Grimes had a group. They would soon be experimenting with drugs, and this would become a vital moment in Grimes' life since most of Grimes' biggest life events would have to do with drugs. At the end of high school, Grimes decided to go to McGill University and study neuroscience. At the time, everything was going well. Since rent was low, Grimes could really do whatever they wanted, whether that be studying or making music, but Grimes eventually left the university in 2011 before finishing their degree, mainly because at the time, Grimes' music was starting to get a buzz in indie music circles, and they were on the precipice of dropping one of their most critically acclaimed albums. But we're not there yet. We're in 2007, where Grimes is learning how to use the music software GarageBand for a music class they're taking. They liked the software so much because it was a lot of fun, and from that point, Grimes was hooked and made music all day, every day. The first music to come from this was the 2007 EP that we're not covering because it's not on Spotify, but after this, Grimes started to take it more seriously by learning how to use a sampler and creating longer, more complex songs. Grimes was a part of an art collective called Lab Synthèse that didn't last long since the founders of Lab Synthèse was named David Pete. Tragically, he committed suicide, and Lab Synthèse was shut down. This was extra hard for Grimes since Lab Synthèse was a communal living space, and Grimes was one of the people living there. For months, they had to relocate and find a new place. The suicide of their best friend made Grimes feel an obligation to become something in music, and the first starts of this are how Grimes' first full-length album start. Gaiety Primes, January 10th, 2010, by Arbutus Records. Gaiety Primes is a concept album based on Frank Herbert's novel Dune, which Grimes loved growing up, along with Lord of the Rings. The album title refers to the fictional planet of Gaiety Prime of the Dune universe. The first track, Kaladin, refers to the fictional planet of the same name. It starts with these old-timey tines and filtered pianos over Grimes' lightly reverberated voice, and it's for sure a strange song. It's not exactly a dance song since the drums feel too low in the mix for you to nod your head around. It's more like walking through a forest high and encountering strange creatures lurking in the forest. The next song is which refers to the military rank of the Leven Birch, roughly in between sergeant and lieutenant, in the fictional army of Sardaukar. It's a mostly string-based song. It also could be ukulele since Grimes learned that instrument around this time, and in the background is a soft 909 drum machine playing a very simple beat. I like this song. Grimes' voice can be a bit distracting since their voice wasn't exactly the greatest at the time. Grimes has stated before that they were not a professional musician and they were more motivated by feeling than musicality. Not saying that any of their early work is bad, but it gives me the same feeling that early punk records give me, where the members have like no idea what they're doing and they're just figuring it out as they go. Zol Face Dancer is a fast-paced dream pop song with a 125 kick and hi-hat shuffle and marimba sounding plucks, playing a rather unsettling melody. The title refers to a type of human in the series who can shapeshift. This is personally the first song I added to the playlist because it's simple, it's bouncy compared to the other songs, and the drums are not in the back end of the mix. Also, yes, there is a playlist for all of the songs in the description if you want to hear. Rosa is another solid song. This time the subject is Duke Leo Atreides and Lady Jessica, both characters from Dune. I really like the MIDI bass on this song, and Grimes also uses their voice very good on it. It's not super coated in Grimes' signature reverb, opting for a more clean tone on the lead vocals and a reverb tone on the backing vocals. I would say that my one complaint is that it pretty much stays the same for the whole way through, choosing just to be one long verse with some oohs and ahs in there. Avi is the next song. This song likely refers to Robbie Avi Garber. These sharp-sounding 80s drums play in the background, and Grimes offers this super sweet vocal refrain that I didn't originally enjoy, but on further re-listens, this track has been extremely enjoyable, even if the mix is a bit wonky. Fade Rutha Darkheart refers to the primary antagonist of the first novel in the Dune series, named Phaedra. I swear this song is just the same thing for 3 minutes, but it builds in kind of a nice way. I didn't put it on the playlist because the first time I listened to it, I really didn't like it, and even on re-listens, it hasn't really grown on me. But I can get down with the distorted electronic drums and the quiet synth at the end. Gam Bang is the shortest track on the album, with this whacked, psyched out synth and piano combination complemented by some pretty angelic vocals. Too bad it's only 1 minute and 20 seconds. Also, I tried doing research on what this song is about, like what the title is, if it has anything to do with the Dune books, because I haven't read them, if it's a character. The only thing I could find is that Gembang is a xylophone-like instrument commonly used in Indonesia, but it's not known if any of these have like connection to the song or if Grimes just liked the name. Venus in Fleurs, the song's flute production and overall atmosphere is super dark, and it's one of the only songs on the album that isn't a reference to the Dune books. It is probably a reference to the Velvet Underground song Venus in Furs, or the book it was named after. Fleurs is the French word for flowers for all you dumbasses out there. The lyrics of the song consist of the phrase, "Where are you, my darling?" in Russian, and "I don't know," being said in English. I forgot to mention this about Grimes, but they're part Ukrainian and also took a double minor in the Russian language in college. Gris Gris feels like an extended version of the last song, but there are some pretty crazy electronics near the end of the song, and that keeps it engaging. The lyrics are taken from a Russian children's poem, but it's similar to the English poem This Little Piggy, and I believe that this is the only song that has no English words whatsoever. Shadow Mapes refers to the minor character of the same name. This song drags. I feel like the past 3 songs really follow the same style, but at this point it's getting pretty tired. It's almost too dreamy, and with little going on in the lyrics, it tends to just drift. I suppose this isn't a unpopular opinion since it's the least streamed song on the album and is also the longest by 2 minutes, and these are things that correlate. Beast Infection, the song has this clicky beat that rumbles in the background as lightly plucked guitar plucks its way through the high frequencies. While not a bad way to end the album, I was left desiring more. Grimes did not expect that the album would be so successful, and so assuming that no one would ever hear it, they quote this as being their reasoning behind the album title and track titles, though has since mentioned that the decision has kind of haunted them. They also stated that they now feel that the album was naive, but this did not stop Pitchfork from rating it a 7.5 out of 10 because of course Pitchfork. Here's an excerpt from their review of Gaiety Primes. Even though it clocks in at just a slight 30 minutes, Gaiety Primes is a wholly immersive experience. The melodies are hooky and sweet, but each track has a throbbing undercurrent of menace that pulls you in like a riptide. I feel this is a pretty apt description for the album, but personally I would rate it at a 4.5, maybe a 5 after re-listens. I feel like the lyrics are just like something that's left to be desired. I found out about the meanings of most of the track by doing research on the characters or the events that they're based on, since there's very little explanation from song to song given by Grimes. But hey, it's a debut. Halfaxa. October 5th, 2010 by Arbutus Records. This album was named after the city of Halifax, Nova Scotia, but Grimes wanted to invent a new word, so they made the city name sound more like a girl's name. Before being named Halifaxa, the album was going through working titles like Glacielia and Dragvandil. As I stated before, when we're talking about Grimes' use of drugs, this album is a prime example. Grimes said about the recording of this album, it all started because one day, my friend and I did lots of speed, and then we were making music together, and then I guess he stopped being on speed, but I was still on speed all night, so I went into my room and I made a song, number 3 on the album, and then I was like, wow, this song's so much better than anything I've ever made. And then I think I made song number 2 that night too. And then I made all of the other songs within a month and a half. It made me lose all inhibitions about singing and being weird. There's an intro to the album. It's too short to be a song, so confusingly enough, the first proper song is called Intro/Flowers. The song reminds me a lot of Rosa off of the last record, with these sequence beats and drums that almost feel like a live jam. Also, Grimes recorded themselves knocking a piece of wood, and that's how the song got its start. I can't really tell you what this song's about because Grimes harmonies over the majority of its duration, and even though there are words, I have no idea what's going on, and it's pretty short. Unlike Wordlet, this was the first song that Grimes was talking about doing speed to. At 5 minutes and 30 seconds, it's longer than anything off of Gaiety Primes. So how does it bend extra time? By being kind of a fucking banger. This song just has a super melancholy vibe with it, and Grimes' androgynous voice and good use of sequence beats really pull it forward. Grimes also references their cat named Volgamir, which makes it so much cuter. Maybe the only thing I don't like is the intro, but besides that, it's a highlight. And then we follow it up with a song with similar length, also with an intro that I'm not too fond of, because I feel like Grimes is so very ever so slightly out of tune. That's just a problem I feel that applies to this song. Grimes' voice is super inconsistent on this one, but once the drums come in, the rest of the song kicks into gear, and you can more or less tune out Grimes screaming in your ear. The rest of the song consists of a fast house beat blended with Grimes' trademark reverberated, obscured, ethereal vocals. The next track is Dragvandil. After 2 songs that total over 10 minutes, Grimes decided to make a short-ass song that sounds like, well, kind of shit. I mean, seriously, the instrumental is like super annoying, but I guess it doesn't stay along for long enough for it to become super unbearable. Grimes just likes to make silly music sometimes. Also, the song is named after a Viking sword in Final Fantasy XI. Devon is the next song, and it's by far the most popular song. Just from reading the lyrics, I could spot a narrative of Grimes falling in love with some guy, and let me guess, yeah, his name is Devon. Not to spoil anything with Grimes, but, you know, they eventually date Elon Musk, so Devon and Grimes didn't stick around long, though Devon stayed along long enough to make one of my favorite Grimes songs, but whatever. I can get down with the da-da-da-da-da-das and at the end, and overall, the groove of the song is pretty hypnotic. The next song is Dream Fortress. This is another inconsistent Grimes performance, but I feel like I should put it on the playlist because those drums are super danceable. And there's also a very spooky inclusion of strings before breaking into a distorted house breakdown, so I count this as a good song. World Princess. This is a super unique Grimes song with this pulsating beat and over-the-top reverb swirling around you as Grimes repeats, "I cannot feel." The second half is also pretty good with this nice groove and a brief section where you can hear Grimes' raw vocal with no reverb, which is always appreciated since it's pretty hard to make out what they're saying on most of the songs. River serves as yet another interlude. The song is made up of Grimes harmonizing over some bass and guitar that sounds super low-passed, almost like it's a sample and you're trying to hide it from the copyright police. Next is Swan Song, which is a combination of synth pop and drum beats sampled from no wave band DNA's song Blonde Redhead. It's beautiful and ethereal like most of the songs on the project, but the sampled drums really add a new life to the song. I hope Grimes will incorporate more real drums in their music. I'm not entirely sure how to say the next song on screen, so I'm just going to put it on the screen. For this song, I guess I'm going to call it Omega, and that's all I have to say about it because it's just an interlude. The next song is called My Sister Says the Saddest Things. It's an upbeat, catchy song with this catchy melody with this pounding, distorted bass that makes its way to a truly one-of-a-kind chorus. I think the interpretation that the song could be sung from brothers Grime's point of view is really interesting, describing Grimes' music and what they say in interviews compared to who they grew up with. I love the repeated lines that say, "My only friend, this is the end." Hallways has this distorted harmony and pitch shifting that was probably cool at the time. I mean, this record came out in 2010 and the vocal chopping sounds like something that Blank Banshee would do in 2012, so maybe he was inspired by Grimes, but listening to this in current year, it sounds kinda goofy. It doesn't help that the song is fucking long, inching close to 6 minutes in length. And finally, the last song, Fairville. Personally, this song is just okay. It's a mix between the dream pop that Grimes usually uses and the strange orchestration and reverb. It's not a bad closer, but it feels like Grimes hasn't had a true album closer. I assume because they were too high on speed to figure out a way to end this album, but hey, that's just my thoughts. So how do I feel? I'm feeling a 6. It's definitely an improvement compared to Grimes' debut. I feel like my personal highlights are Weregill, Devon, Swan Song, and Intro Flowers, Dream Fortress, and My Sister Says the Saddest Things. Those are all great songs. The rest I can take it or leave it, and since we looked at Pitchfork's score last time, I'll put it up here. It's 7.8 out of 10. So already on the second record, Grimes is almost looking at an 8. In May of 2011, they opened for Like Lee on their North American tour, and the following August, Giddy Primes was re-released through No Pain in Pop Records in CD and vinyl formats for the first time. Also, I forgot to mention Giddy Primes came out on cassette. After so much praise and attention, it was only a matter of time before Grimes would sign to a major label. Eventually, Grimes signed to record label 4AD in January 2012. 4AD is home to some of my favorite bands, and I just wanted to list them here. Cocteau Twins, Pixies, This Mortal Coil, Pale Saints, Unrest, Bauhaus, The National, The Mountain Goats, and Deer Hunter, just to name a few. Anyways, back to Grimes. Following extensive touring and positive reception to their first 2 albums, Grimes followed up Halfaxa by dropping their most critically acclaimed album to date, Visions, in January 31st, 2012 on Arbutus Records / 4AD Records. But before we get to the album, we have to talk about the process in which it was made. In interviews after the album's release, Grimes claims that they were under a severe deadline to finish their 3rd record before it was ready. As a result, Grimes spent 3 weeks recording the majority of Visions alone in their Montreal home. Notably, during this intense recording session, they went 9 days without eating or sleeping, had the windows covered because they typically found it difficult to compose music during the day and used tons of amphetamines. Grimes characterized the writing as equal parts enjoyable and torturous, believing that the difficulty was a key factor in the success. Grimes later clarified that they hated hard drugs and their impact on their friends, and did not want to be associated with their use. Now with that out of the way, let's jump back into the first track, which in typical Grimes fashion is an intro. The first thing we hear on the opening track, Infinite Love Without Fulfillment, are these off-kilter drums sputtering over Grimes' voice, but this time Grimes' voice is different, as if reverb was only at 15%. But I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the song, mostly because there are more interesting songs I want to talk about, but they spend most of the track overlapping 5 or 6 voices at the same time before transitioning into the next song, Genesis, the first proper song. Genesis doesn't need an introduction because starting this video, I knew 3 songs by Grimes, and you can guess which ones those are in the comments, but I'll give you a hint. One of them was this one. It rides this big abrasive beat with these equally big bass synth lines awash with reverb. There's a piano loop and a flute sound that glitters like a dream. The highlight to me is Grimes' voice presenting a more somber view of falling in love, juxtaposed and pastel-colored idealism of popular love songs with a critique that is paranoid about contemporary relationships. To me, it makes perfect sense why this was chosen as a single. Genesis was named 25th Best Track of 2012 by Pitchfork, which makes me wonder what number 1 was. Let me check. Oh, it's the next track on the album. Okay, without further ado, let's talk about Oblivion, by far Grimes' most popular song today, and for good reason. It's wonderfully executed, powerful pop music, dealing with the struggles of being a woman, walking through the streets at night, as stated by Grimes in an interview years later. This song was about being violently assaulted, and it made me crazy for a few years. I got really paranoid walking around at night and started feeling really unsafe. The song is more about empowering myself physically amongst a masculine power, and the hate of feeling powerlessness, making light of a masculine physical power, making it jovial and non-threatening. It took a typically violent cultural situation and made it pop and happy. Throughout, imagery depicting a dark night evokes both the actual event of the assault and Grimes' process of coping with the trauma. Grimes recalls, "I was in tears by the end of it," when referring to the song, and I can see why. This song is a deeply intimate look at Grimes that we've never really seen before. In previous songs, we got the feeling that something was wrong, but this was the first time that we get a personal song about personal lyrics and personal events in Grimes' life. It also helps that it got a music video. We're then hit by the track 8, which is just an interlude, which has the world's most unconvincing vocoder repeating, "Try this," which makes it sound like kind of provoking, as if a robot is trying to offer me drugs. I just don't really like this song. Circumambient starts with what sounds like static and airplanes above the head before being broken into a synth jam, and good lord, the snare is loud as hell. It has this gated effect that makes it cut off very quick. It's interesting, if a bit annoying, but doesn't really ruin the rest of the song, since it follows up with a typical Grime structure of these exploding choruses and these layovers of vocals, but this time it feels less poppy than on previous cuts. I see a lot of people on Reddit say that this is their favorite song, and I can see why. Personally, the lyrics aren't like my favorite, and I feel like Grimes reverted to their older self lyrically on this song, since I feel like there's no focus in the lyrics compared to these newer personal songs. The next song is the bass drum and crackling synth track, Vowels, Space and Time. It portrays a delirious outlook on love and offers one of Grimes' most catchy performances. I love the bass on this song. Visiting Situ is the next song, just under 2 minutes, therefore a lot of people consider it an interlude, and I'm inclined to fall into that camp, since there's only one verse in the song. Is just this fun dance jam with 909 claps and auto-tuned vocals, with just the right amount of distortion. Next is Be a Body, and here's how Grimes described the lyrical focus on this song. "I don't have a phone, everyone I know is on their fucking phone, on the internet all the time. I just wanted to write a song about being alive and in a real world. Be a body," Grimes said in an interview to the Vancouver Sun in 2012. Now 11 years later, I don't know, I feel this sentiment more and more, and yeah, you fucking Zoomers, go outside, read a book, drink some tea, god fucking damn it. The song's great and is actually one of my favorites. The same cannot be said about the next song, Color of Moonlight. Here's the thing, it's just the same thing over and over again, and most of the lyrics are pretty much the same thing. It feels like filler, or some of the prime examples of this would be Grimes' previous albums, but this time it just doesn't work. After a multitude of great songs, I think this is the first real dud. Symphonia 4, My Weight Is You. This song can be seen as a Grimes-esque ballad, since it has one of the slowest tempos amongst all of the other songs. I really like the change. That descending piano line is so good, and Grimes has some beautiful background vocals on this song. In a retrospective track-by-track commentary, Grimes says this about the song. "This song sort of epitomes the feelings I had at the time, super disconnected from everyone and laser focused on being an artist. Like people who were trying to get me to come out and drink beers or something. I just was like, I have to make this, and my friends were all acting like I'd lost my mind and gone mad in a bunker. So this song was kind of all about the insane urgency in my body to be doing what I was doing, even though everyone thought I was on a fool's errand." And thank God for that, because this is one of my favorite songs on the album. Such a solid song that works despite its super weird outro. Night Music is the third to last song and was released as the second promotional single, and it's notable not just because it's an incredible song, but because it has the guest addition of Devin from Magical Clouds. That guy I was talking about earlier that, Grimes made a song about? Yeah, this Devin. Apparently, he checked up on Grimes while they were having a manic episode in which the album was being made. Devin came down into the dark pit, played some synths on it for me, and helped me keep my chin up. In contrast to the last song where Grimes was talking about pushing people away and not letting them hear it, this time when Grimes collaborates with somebody, they make some of their best music on the whole album. Skin is the next song. According to Grimes, it's definitely some teenage angst. It's a song about Grimes hooking up with some guy in a band that was bigger than theirs at the time. I'm not going to go out of my way to find this guy because who fucking cares. The point is that Grimes kind of fell in love with this guy and he stopped talking to Grimes, as told through the verse before the chorus. I hate that you're leaving, so why don't you talk to me? You act like nothing ever happened, but it meant the world to me. I forget to mention that A, this is the longest song at 6 minutes, and B, it's the final real song. It reminds me of the later stuff on Halfaxa, since I feel like Grimes automatically resorts to making their long songs all just one thing, but it could just be Grimes' songwriting and inexperience at the time, but the song is not bad. I would even go as far as to say it's one of the most ambitious things on the album, even if the lyrics are a bit on the nose. And finally, the last song is Know the Way, at 1 minute and 44. This song was about how Grimes couldn't be Christian and lamenting the loss of faith because to Grimes there was something so beautiful and comforting about religion. But ultimately, I'm not going to ascribe to a moral religion, but I actually love the religious experience. And the song was just kind of an obituary of my religious brain. The whole song is just guitar and bass, and I like the shortness and simplicity of it. And personally, I think it's the best way that Grimes could have ended the album. And with that, that's the end of the album. I give it the same score as Pitchfork, this time 8.5. Grimes killed it on this one, and not only showing that their weirdo experimental songs could be stripped back and polished into a cohesive album, but also displaying a vulnerability within Grimes to the public for the first time. After this release, Grimes set out on the Visions tour. The first leg began on February 18, 2012 in Vancouver, British Columbia, and ended March 31st, 2012 in Montreal, Quebec. Whilst the second leg began on May 7th, 2012 in Glasgow, Scotland, and ended June 16th, 2012 in Pasadena, California. All shows of the first leg were opened by fellow Canadian artist Born Gold. And that's actually where I'm going to end the video. I have been writing this video for about 2 weeks, and I just need time to listen to the rest of the albums, but I wanted to put something out for you guys. This is part 1. So come back next week or next 2 weeks from now. I'll try to put out a filler video or something. And I'm gonna finish this Grimes video. And you'll get to hear about Art Angel and the other one that I'm really not fucking excited to listen to. Because, yeah, I've been told not very good things about it, so maybe it'll be easier to write all the things I hate about Grimes, because I really do like these first 3 albums. They were lots of fun to listen to, even though, you know, the first one was a little bit rough, I'm not even gonna lie. But check out the you know, Grimes ranked. I have a playlist in the description, and you can listen to that. I will be updating that as I listen to the stuff, so if you want to, like, and also that would be my Spotify if you want to follow my Spotify. Yeah, you could tell I don't have a script because I'm just fucking talking. Alright, thank you guys for watching this video.